My name is Laura Lofgren. I am the digital systems marketing manager at World Wildlife Fund. I started in the nonprofit world at National Wildlife Federation. I was there for 8 years, and we started in Luminate Online, and then I helped the migration to Engaging Networks, and then I served as their Engaging Networks admin. And then I started at World Wildlife Fund 3 years ago. We also migrated from Luminate Online to Engaging Networks, and then now I am their Engaging Networks admin. So Malcolm Gladwell says that it takes 10,000 hours of practice in a subject to become an expert in it, and I calculated that with, excluding vacation days and Panda Fridays, I have about 12,000 hours in Engaging Networks. So I have compiled a list of a few things that I think would be helpful for you to know and you could implement immediately. I will caveat this with, I gave this presentation to my partner, who is an accountant, by the way, and he was really bored and couldn't follow it. So I'm really hoping that, there are a few of you in the audience who find the nonprofit ECRM world, admin world, as interesting as I do. So let's move on. Okay, so the first one is managing fraud. I know we did just talk about this, but hopefully I can give you some more perspective on the administration side of it. Oh, thank you. So what fraud on donation forms looks like. So I know that we kind of just went through this, so I'll kind of briefly touch on it, but card testing, again, usually really low donation amounts like $1, $5. They're basically bad actors who have these stolen credit cards, and they're trying to test them on your donation forms to make sure the numbers are correct and work. We have seen some large donation amounts, though, like $66,000 for some reason. Burst traffic, this is kind of more like, I don't even know why it happens, but on your subscription forms or like peer-to-peer pages, registration pages, things like that. We just recently had an example where there were a bunch of like medical prescription first name, last names that were being created, and there were like thousands of them. And then friendly fraud, which I know they touched on that as well, which like legitimate donors who then go back and dispute. Okay. The consequences of card testing. So it's not just a headache for you as the admin. Card testing can cause dispute fees because a person will see that their card has been used and then go and dispute it, and so you have to take on that fee. It can create, the higher decline rates can cause ruin your reputation, basically, or lower your reputation with like card issuers and networks. There's a reduction in your data quality. You can have a bunch of nonsense records or fraud records, and if you don't clean those up, and then you end up emailing them, then you can mess up your email deliverability and your sender reputation. So, how to identify fraud? So, the first thing I suggest is signing up for text or email alerts in Engaging Networks. The second is to get alerts from your payment gateway, and you should also regularly monitor your payments. You can do like a simple morning check, just checking for like spikes in decline rates or nonsense names or email addresses, things like that. So what to do when you see fraud? So the first thing I always do is I put in a support ticket with Engaging Networks, and I tell them to add a managed challenge to the form. This is like a bit of code that they can add that it works really well, but it does like cause like a 2-second delay on your form to load because it's like checking if you're a real human. So I don't suggest having it on your form all the time necessarily, but it works super well to mitigate fraud. You can also add a CAPTCHA. We have the high-risk CAPTCHA always on our forms, which that applies to like high-risk countries only. But when a fraud attack is happening, I'll add the like real CAPTCHA to our forms for that time. And then you can also block if it's like coming from a specific IP or email address, you can block those. I will say like people can get around that. They can even get around the CAPTCHA. I've seen that happen. But I will say, like, just do the most that you can to kind of deter them and get them to make it be like really annoying so that they'll just like move on to a different form. Once the fraud has been mitigated, then you need to clean up. So what we do at World Wildlife Fund is if any records that have been created that don't have a successful revenue transaction on them, I will try to delete them immediately out of Engaging Networks. Before they sync to CRM, because like I don't want to clean it up twice. And then anything that has a successful transaction on it, I create a support, or like a ticket with relevant stakeholders and kind of communicate out what's going on, and then we kind of decide, is this legitimate fraud, and then do a refund on those if we decide it's legitimate. So how to prevent fraud. So as we just learned, it's really difficult to fully prevent fraud, but there are a lot of things you can do, which I know a lot of them were just talked about. We always have the high-risk CAPTCHA on our forms. Your payment gateway, learn about your payment gateway and the fraud management that it has. You can get like we use Stripe, and you can get Radar for Fraud Teams, which is just like a higher level where you could create custom rules if you wanted to. Put a minimum donation amount on your form. I will say bots can also get around the minimum donation amount, but still good practice. CVV and zip code matching, so just making sure that it's that their zip code and CVV needs to match what's on the card. And then email validation, using a third-party email validation API on the email field. And then ACH account validation. So we use Stripe's Plaid, which is like a secure login for donating with ACH. I know that EN recently came out with like you can do it with account and routing numbers, which is great for like member solutions, but we still want to keep the secure Plaid login for our regular donation forms. Cleaning up old forms. So any forms that you're not using anymore, just close them or delete them because fraudsters like to find old forms that nobody's looking at. And then for combating friendly fraud, just making sure you're putting like clear frequency and that the donation amount is really clear on your form so they're not surprised after they've donated. Okay, recurring gift management. Check your payment gateway settings. Okay, so this is something I thought might be interesting for you guys to check. So we noticed that, so we do a zip check on all of our donation forms. So if somebody's making a donation, whether one time or recurring, they have to make sure that their zip code matches what's on their credit card. However, we noticed that was applying to recurring gift installments as well in Stripe. So somebody might have a recurring gift and then change their address a few months later. Their gift would then fail in Stripe, and we didn't want that to happen. We didn't want the zip check to run on recurring installments. So when we realized this, we actually spoke with Stripe and we figured out a way to create a custom rule using Radar for Fraud Teams, and that allows it to basically skip the zip check on recurring installments, and this has saved us a lot of money, like an average of like $250 gifts a month, which is like $4,500 a month. So I suggest you check if that's happening for you. And then we are working with Stripe to try to even make that better with a skip rule, so stay tuned. And then related is the credit card updater. So Stripe has a credit card updater that's built into their product, but because Engaging Networks is the billing engine, and Stripe doesn't actually know what is a one-time or recurring gift, and so it is just running the credit card updater, which is just checking to make sure that the card number and expiration date and all that are up to date. It's running that on all gifts, including one-time gifts. So we don't really need that to run on a one-time gift because the person already donated, and if they're going to donate it again, they'll just, enter in their card information again. And so it charges us 25 cents each time it runs. So we are working with Stripe to try to figure that one out as well. If anyone has any solutions, let me know. Okay. And then just managing your failing recurring gifts. So EN automatically retries a failing gift 2 more times, once the day after, and then once you can decide in the settings how many days after. We do 25 days after. But then we also have a process that is pushed from our CRM that auto activates the gift after it has become suspended 5 more times. So for a total of 6 months, we are trying the gifts 3 times a month. There are also, just to try to recapture that failing gift as best we can, give us more time. But there are also like third-party tools that you can use that we are looking into as well, that use like AI to do like smart timing of retrying those gifts as well. And then marketing automations, EN has marketing automations built into their tool to help you manage your gifts. So there's like an expiration date, like your expiration date is coming up on your credit card, and so it'll automatically email people at a certain amount of days that you can specify ahead of time to let them know to update their expiration date. We also have one for when your gift is failing, to let them know that their gift is failing, and we send them to the supporter hub where they can update their gift in the hub and manage their recurring gift there. And we also give them the number to Member Solutions, our member services team, or their email address so they could reach out that way and do it. And then SMS outreach, we try like quarterly sending SMS outreach to try to recapture failing gifts as well. And then bonus is, I don't know if you knew this, but in the hub, people can change their gifts to lower than your lowest amount that you have on your forms. You can't set a lowest amount on the supporter hub, so somebody can change their gift to 50 cents a month. So we did notice that we had a bunch of those, and so we just set up a process to auto-cancel those because we didn't think that they were worth the fee of processing them. Okay. Always testing. So always be testing. So this is, I know there's been a lot of talk of testing. My colleague Gaby presented yesterday on a lot of the things that WWF does to optimize our forms and things that we have tested. This is going to be more around how to organize testing within your organization. So we have an Airtable base. This isn't updated since I updated it, so it's kind of backwards, but okay. It's not showing exactly what I wanted to show. But we have an Airtable base, and I can kind of talk through like an example A/B test that we have run and kind of show you how like it would go through our process, sort of. So we have I have 1 minute left.
Yeah, this okay.
I'm barely through this. Okay. Okay. So we basically somebody can all tests start out as like an idea. So somebody can enter that idea into the Airtable base using a form, like an if-form interface, and then we will meet and go through all of the new ideas that have been added and just either tag them as deferred or approved to test. And then all ideas might have like a dependency. So we have a column for dependencies. So for example, like something that Foresight needs to work on, we will put like the Foresight link in there. And then when all those dependencies have been met, and it is ready to test, we mark it as ready to test, and then it shows up, we can add a start and an end date, and it will show up in the calendar view. The calendar view is really helpful to be able to like visualize when things are being tested. And then as we're testing it, it's testing in progress is the status, and then once the test is complete, the status will change to tested, and we actually have like a testing, this hasn't been updated. Okay. We will actually have like a testing, like a test results Airtable base that is linked to the ideas Airtable base, where you can just kind of link it to your idea, but then also just add more test results, including like the metrics, like what were the results, was it statistically significant, and then linking to, like, we have a spreadsheet that where we actually track the actual results. So we'll like link to that. We'll include screenshots so that we remember what the test was. So with a meeting where we meet and go through all of those regularly as well, we go through the results and we go through the like the ideas and prioritize the ideas is also really helpful. So just a way to keep track of everything. Okay, number 4, check your webhooks. So Stripe is integrated in with Engaging Networks, but there are additional webhooks that we needed to add. For example, when you have a credit card that is being disputed and then there's a chargeback, the status will update in Stripe, and that information needs to then come back down to Engaging Networks, and that is done through an additional webhook. There's also like ACH related webhooks. So in Stripe, a gift will be pending, and then like an ACH gift will be pending until the funds are withdrawn from the bank like a few days later, and then it will become success or reject. And so that few days later, that writes back to Engaging Networks and updates the gift. This was originally broken, and in Engaging Networks, it was showing just immediately success, and then when the gift would be updated in Stripe, that to reject, if it was rejected, that wouldn't write back to Stripe, but when that was fixed, they updated the statuses to be pending, and that, like, matching what was in Stripe, so it would be pending, and then update to reject or success, which is correct. But that did cause some downstream effects for us in our CRM. So this is kind of just like more of a reminder to like check that that things like when gifts are being updated in your payment processor later, like for chargebacks or things like that, that those are being reflected in Engaging Networks, and then also checking that that is also being reflected in CRM, so that everything is kind of like reconciled. And then just make sure you're also reading the release notes, because there are sometimes little tidbits about different payment gateways and updates that have been made, and just making sure that you're up to date on like what those are. I'm going to skip this because it looks like we have no. Oh. Okay. Well, that was just about the payments, the PayPal status updater, and that's just because I get asked that all the time as an admin, and I also get confused by it. So I just wanted to like make it clear. So when a PayPal gift initially goes through, it is initially pending, and then it becomes success, but immediately it becomes success. If the gift was rejected, it would be showing as reject. But if the person like logs into their PayPal account but never actually fully gives you the gift, or something goes wrong with the login process and they kind of just abandon doing it, it remains as pending. And so it will just persist as pending in Engaging Networks. So don't count those gifts as success or possible success gifts. They're always going to be, just count them as rejects, basically. Okay, create a supporter field mapping document. So this is really helpful. Basically, in Engaging Networks, if you're an admin, you can go to the account data structure page, and you will see where all the supporter fields are, and there's a little export button that you can click. So click that, and it will download all of your supporter fields into a spreadsheet. And then I created some extra columns that I think are really helpful. One is purpose or description, and this is super helpful for like custom fields, so everyone's on the same page and knows what the field is for. And then also the like EN to, I've got like ones the flows. So EN to CRM, CRM to EN. I will just put like either a Y or an N. If that field flows from EN to CRM, it's like a Y, and if it doesn't, then it's an N. And that's just like to keep track of the sync direction for each of your fields, because it's like impossible to remember all of that. And this way you can just always reference it, especially if there are questions or there are issues. You can also include like your data warehouse or any other systems. And then I also include a source column, which is just like where does the information from that field originate. So like, for example, the lookup ID, which is our CRM ID, like that comes from our CRM, so it originates in our CRM. So I just put that there too. Number 6, hold governance and user meetings. So we have a weekly EN governance meeting. It has actually recently been combined with our CRM meeting, and it includes all representatives from all the teams who use EN and who use our CRM. And it's just like a really great place to like cross-communicate across teams. We talk about updates that are going on in the EN, releases, any bugs, any fixes, and announcements. But then we also have tickets for things, and when something is elevated to the fact that it needs to be talked about in this governance meeting, we can flag that ticket, and then it will be discussed in our governance meetings. And we have a mediator who like takes notes and all of that. And then we have an EN super users briefing, which I named. And that is with people who regularly use Engaging Networks. And we just talk through, they'll talk about their campaigns, we'll talk about pain points or like issues with Engaging Networks that they're having, or positive things that are going on with Engaging Networks. And then like I, as the admin, will review like the latest and upcoming releases. I'll also talk about like form improvements, bug fixes, and like tips and tricks. And I might do a demo if there's anything new to show or somebody had a question and wanted to see something. And then bonus, this keep an EN enhancement spreadsheet. So I have this spreadsheet. You could do it in like Trello or some other ticketing system. Anytime there is an issue in Engaging Networks that I hear about or find, I will put it in the spreadsheet. I have it separated into different tabs, like the hub or broadcast email, et cetera. And like I will include why does this matter column, just to make it clear why it's important, and then a priority column like low, medium, high, or critical, and then a place for EN comments or status updates. And then I have this like highest priority tab where I basically gather all of the highest priority items, and I will talk through to like everyone in our organization, kind of gather that list and kind of come up with that list with the help of everyone. And then this is kind of what I've presented to EN, and they have really helped and worked through most of our highest priority items. So I highly suggest everyone else do this as well, or maybe Engaging Networks could have this for all of us to contribute into. That'd be cool. So that's everything. Thank you. Let me know if you have any questions.
That was awesome. Some really good tips there. Thank you, Laura. Okay, when you experience fraud or a carding run, do you apply the managed challenge to the specific form or more broadly across all of your forms?
Usually just the specific form. Yeah. If it starts to spread, then we might do it on, like there's been like one time I can think of where it had spread to other forms. Like when we put it on that form, it like went to a different form. So then we put it on kind of like all of our main forms that could be accessed through the website, and then that stopped it.
Thank you, Laura.